Hi, everyone. It's JL Rothstein here. Welcome to my show, Three Questions With. I'm very excited tonight. I have fellow writer John Aaron Sandler. So welcome to the show, John.
Hello. Hello. Nice to be here. Happy to be here.
Very, very excited. So John and I were just chit-chatting before the show, and he's got short stories that are on his website, johnaronsandler.com. And there's a couple of short stories I want to ask you about when we finish with the questions, if I can stick it in there. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on the website, and then also what's going on Twitter?
Thanks. Yeah. So the website, johnaronsandler.com, spelled JON, two A's, RONSANDLER.com. You know, God help me. Basically, Jonathan Sandler on Google was a very handsome actor and musician, which I could not compete with. So I went to the middle name, and then it turned out JOHN is a very popular name. So that's why it has these weird spellings. And that's where all my writing is, short stories. It's creative nonfiction about my life, having to do with when I had a terrible leg injury, took me out of the world for 4 years. I was dealing with being essentially improperly medicated with psychiatry, and also stories about COVID. So it's all about being isolated and trying to get into the world, but funnier than you think. Someone said if a horror movie and a sitcom were put together, that's what some of the stories are like. So I'm going to go with that. That's a good sell, I think. And then Twitter, a lot of things happen on Twitter just because there's this, that's how we met. There's this crazy, awesome writer community there. Really vibrant right now. I think COVID has brought the people back to social medias and looking for community, which is amazing. And the main thing that's happening right now is I've been doing Zoom events where established writers who have a main publisher are brought together with indie writers from the Twitter writer community, and they all read from their work. We have a chat. They talk to people who are in attendance. It's been really, really fun. We're on the third one. It's coming up September 26th, 7 p.m. EST. You get it by signing up my newsletter, which is, you can either go to my Twitter account, John Aaron Sandler, or to my website. That's how you sign up for the newsletter, and you get the Zoom link. It's, like you said, it's also a food event. So it's called Stories and Pierogies. So if you make pierogies, I send you a recipe in the email, but you can make any pierogies you want or store-bought. The best looking pierogies gets a prize, and the prize is from a store I'm running with my girlfriend called John and H. H is also on Twitter. She does incredible illustrations. You can find it on my account or hers, H Pretty Pixels. And we have mugs and bookmarks and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like she should be next to you with a little bit of microphone to plug her stuff there. And does she like pierogies? Does she make pierogies, or does she leave that totally up to you?
She's a very private person, to the point where people thought I was her, and then her illustrations were just too good, and they said, I don't think we can do that. Actually, hold on, I think.
Now, let's give her a plug.
Let's give her a bit of a plug. This is an example of her doing a Da Vinci classic in her style for a bookmark, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So she has a day job as well as doing all this. It's a bit much. She's also very cute. I quite like her. And but she's very, very private. So, you know, H is the mysterious H, I guess. She threatened to come on here, but I think she's decided just to have tea.
Well, she's more than welcome. There's a perfect spot right to your left
right
that
here.
she can fit right in there, just as if she was meant to be there.
No, I'm plugging books here. This is Hench by Natalie Zena Walshutz. That's one of our guests for Stories and Pierogies coming up. Going a big deal. That's HarperCollins, 50,000 print.
That's awesome.
Reviews,
oh my goodness.
That's gonna be a very, very big deal.
And how many pierogies did you have to make her to get on the show?
I don't talk about that was a gift with no expectation. Okay. I'm just saying. And then, of course, down here is some great Twitter friends of mine, Wendy Bain and her book Untitled, and Kelly Evans, the Strange Tale of Miss Victoria Park. So whenever I get a chance, there's always books on the shelf.
Yes, yeah, those shelves are pretty jam-packed. Yeah. So you've got them front-facing now, which is Fantastic.
That's right.
So just to remind everybody who's watching, we have been chit-chatting a little bit on email, and I sent you a list of questions, and we've got questions that came back, but I don't know the answer, which is my favorite part of the show. So let's jump right into, which is, what are you reading now?
Right now, basically, I was reading this. I went back to William Carlos Williams' poems. I'd been talking to writer friend Laurel Brett, who I think was on. I talked to you. You guys have chatted. She wrote, right, or it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she wrote the Shortening Girl. She's great. And anyway, she was talking to me about my work, and she said, "You know what? You really remind me in some passages of this poet." And so I've gone back to his collected works. I've got it online at the library, and I'm just reading through it. So it's a very it's a very and it's a very relaxing read. Oddly enough, it's good for these times.
Oh, excellent. So if I can ask a follow-up question, how do you decide what you're going to read next? Is this very mood-based in what you're interested in? Do you read more than one thing at a time?
Well, the other thing is I read a lot for what I'm doing. In terms of writer Twitter, in terms of stories and progress, I read everything I can get my hands on my contemporaries or people I'm working with. So last week I just finished Hench, which is amazing. It's an amazing book about a woman that works for supervillains, and her superpower essentially is data analysis. And it's really good. It's really very good. And I was also reading the first chapter in J. Austin Yoshino's manuscript, Red Mirab, about a Muslim woman going back to her home on Mars, which I think is going to be a really interesting book, and I hope he gets it out there. And then also in terms of just the writers around me, I really try to find work that I might be interested in and read it. I've been reading through Wendy Bain's Untitled and doing a tweet about it every day, just because, I don't know, it let me do my telenovela voice this time on Untitled, which was sort of fun. And yeah, so it's a lot of right now anyway, it's a lot of reading of the people
Mm,
in the community, because I find that really exciting. It's all new. No, a lot of times nobody knows about it, and you
yeah.
can kind of see what's being done now. And then in terms of more classic stuff, it's just, at this point, it's just sort of looking at the shelf and saying, what would I like to read today, in a very random way. That's why the library is, since no one comes over anymore, it's no longer to impress anyone. And I've read most of it, but I kind of go through, and it's to remind me, oh yeah, like, you love this book by Italo Calvino or Camus or Joan Didion or something. Like, read it again. Maybe there's something you missed, and there always is. And so that's been a lot of my other reading.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you're a host also. You have your own shows that you're doing, your own podcast that you're doing on YouTube. And I find that as the host, you all of a sudden you already had a big to be read pile, and now it's bigger because if you're going to have people on your show or you're going to chit chat with people, you want to kind of dive in a little bit and read a little bit about them or support them in some way. So I found that my pile of to be read has really gone up dramatically, and I imagine you have the same thing going on.
Yeah, and also getting much better. I mean, I never say this, but anytime I'm getting better now at saying, like, this is not necessarily bad, but it's not for me, or it's not
Yeah.
going to work for what I'm doing. And so I've become way more ruthless than I thought I would be about, work that just, for whatever reason, with
Yeah.
no judgment
Yeah.
here. I'm,
Right.
so yeah, so there's this pile that's a fight. And then the worst is when you get something that you're thinking of for me, for Stories and Pierogies, or for maybe a review on my Twitter, or just just because it's interesting, but do I have the time? And then it's like, okay, I'll read one more chapter, and then it's like, okay, one more chapter. When you're just not sure, then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
finish the book and you're like, okay, it was worth it.
Yeah.
That's the most frustrating.
Yeah. Your pile can get in the way of other things that were ahead of it, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Twitter, which, as you mentioned earlier, is where we met and we've been chit chatting and supporting one another. So, how are you engaging on Twitter and with the writing community, and what has that meant to you?
I mean, I don't think it's overstating it to say really everything. It's been a very big deal, and I'm really grateful about it. I was doing live shows in Toronto, reading my work for about a year and a half, so maybe one or two a month. And I was developing my writing with different groups, storytelling groups or writers groups. The one I really liked was, and still exists, is Stories We Don't Tell. I want to give them a bit of a plug. It's run by Paul Dorr and Stefan Hostetter. And they were great, and it was a great community, and it really kept the momentum going. Then COVID hit and it all died. You're obviously not going to do any
Yeah.
live stuff. And a lot of those groups sort of, I didn't really like how they were getting off the ground a little bit in terms of doing Zoom shows or Instagram shows or whatever, just because like it was, again, only once a month and you couldn't meet with anybody really.
Yep.
So I turned to Twitter. And I remember the moment I was sitting on the couch and H came out, and I said, I have 12 followers and a robot. And I said, something's happening. I don't know what it is. Everyone's come back. There's this thing called a writer's lift. I don't know, but I think I can get I think I can get 50 followers. And she said, I'm so proud of you. And she meant it. She really was like, that would be incredible. You've had 12 followers for a year and a half, because I started in 2019, I think, on Twitter. And so very quickly about, with writers lifts, if anybody knows or doesn't know, it's follow for follow. And about 200 to 300 people, suddenly the Twitter algorithm sees you. But as you know, that then you're just all just saying, I've got a book, I've got a book, I've got a book, and no one is really talking to each other. So after about a month, I realized that was only going to go so far. I think I saw someone's tweet that said I have 50,000 followers and no one bought my book. And so I said, okay, new strategy. And then at the same time, when I was writing stories about COVID, the COVID experience, I was starting to put those on my website, and H started to illustrate them. And then she started to make little sculptures that looked like me, and called it Clay John. And so, hold on.
They're on the shelf.
They're on the shelf. It's all on the shelf. It's my little extended universe. So I started to do these stop motion videos with them out of sheer boredom. And because everyone was home and everyone was locked down, I wasn't really embarrassed about releasing them anymore because people were doing stranger things. And when I got on Twitter, I just realized, I just really want to give something of value here to, attract a community. And I just started to leave these videos in people's mentions. I started to offer to write their bios like in the style of Dr. Seuss. I went and looked up what made Dr. Seuss Dr. Seuss. I started to talk to people as if they were the characters that they called themselves, and it was kind of like live theater almost. It was really fun, and people were really game to play. They were really everyone was home, and they were really talented, and people were writing poems, and people were suddenly making things. I released a picture where I had two avocados, a black one and a green one. And I said, I think they're evil because I bought them at the same time, but they're ripening different times. And someone on Writer Twitter, Talabat, Amelia, I think is her name, she painted that picture. And she said, we're going to trap this evil avocado like Dorian Gray. And then she mailed it to me. And
that is fantastic. There's no way that you have that story any other way than during COVID than on Twitter. Like you have to, the worlds had to have collided in exactly that way in order to get that story, which is amazing. This was not what I expected. I think I've said many times in these videos and to all the authors and writers that I've met that I was so afraid of Twitter because I was like, that is where people go to just bash each other. And you need this super thick spine and you have to delve into this really ugly world. And I don't want to go there. It was like the wild, wild west. And I had no interest in going out there. And it couldn't be more opposite. So for anybody who's watching who doesn't have a Twitter account, and I actually have talked to many people on Instagram who aren't on Twitter. And I'm like, what are you writers doing all out here? It's great that you're out here. I'm out here too, but you need to come to Twitter. It's where the writers are. It's where the writers are truly supporting one another. So just an amazing, amazing community. And for you, you're so polished, like you're so comfortable getting on camera and talking and joking and laughing. I would say for writers out there who are watching, at some point in time, you're gonna have to read your work. You're gonna have to get out there and meet your readers. Did this just come with time? Like, did this just come from you doing it, or just come naturally for you?
Well, thank you. You know, careful. I'm Canadian. Where are you
I'm
based?
in the U.S. I'm in
You're
the
in the,
U.S.
okay, yes, be very careful. The thank yous could be the rest of the show. Just-
Well, just so you know, I am in the state that founded Dr. Seuss. So
oh,
I am in Massachusetts. So Dr. Seuss is near and dear to us here.
so we just might start saying thank you to, and you're welcome back to each other. That could be the whole thing.
Yeah.
But well, I've heard that. I don't think it's not planned. It's a little unexpected. I think maybe it partly probably it was doing live shows, which really did help. Reading in front of my first reading was in front of 150 people. I did not know it was going to be that many, and I had practiced for a couple weeks. And what had happened is before I got into writing, I was a classical musician in my mid 20s, and I just remember what performance technique is for anything, about how you sort of structure it, how you prepare your reading, how you memorize it, how you then get up on
Yeah.
stage, how you go through it, and all that stuff. And so I think maybe that training helped, and then I sort of applied it. And then really, once you get up in front of a live audience, you know, it really solidifies like your fear and makes you work to just not look foolish. So I think probably that. And so then this came at a good time because I had done that for a year and a half. So that was you know, more used to that.
Yeah.
I think that's it. There's you know, there's a bit of I'm just going to take your compliment as a fact. I'm very uncomfortable with that. But assuming that's the case, there's probably something a little lucky about it, and just a right place, right time.
Yeah. Well, and you do, it's like anything else you do. You do get comfortable with it. Like the first couple of these shows that I recorded, I knew later when I watched it back, I was like, I was so uncomfortable. Which is weird because for my work, I'm on Zoom all the time and I talk and I present and do trainings. So it's like I shouldn't have been, but I was. But in time, it did get a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable. I don't know about speaking in front of 150 people or reading. If I had to actually read pieces of my manuscript, just frightens me to no end. But if I get that opportunity, I'm going to make myself do it anyway because it's just always been something. It's like keep pushing outwards. So that's always been my recommendation for people when I've talked to people and they say I could never do what you do. It's like, yeah, you could. Just hit the record button and do it anyway. You know, just keep just keep going. Do what
Yes,
I
do
do.
it.
Just keep going.
Yes, do it before you think you're ready. Like you do
Yeah.
it to the point where you're like, I could do this, but it's not perfect, and then just do it. I think that's true. Also,
Yeah.
I disagree. I've watched your YouTube stuff. I think you've been really good from the start. You know, again, this is the Canadian thing, so it's going to be a lot of compliments now. But I also think that it's what you're good at, as I've noticed, is like it just feels like you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
Like that's such a hard thing to do, to sound like we are so far away from each other. I'm looking
Yeah.
at a camera, you know, like
Yeah.
to make it feel natural is very hard. So you've set that stage there, and I think that's also like a really good skill for people to watch and sort of study and figure out how to do if they're going to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, and it has been the one thing that's probably saved me in wanting to do this show. And the show is changing a little bit as it goes along, and I like that too. I don't want it to go stale or to be the same thing, but just in talking to people, because there have been people who's like, I want to do it, but I'm so nervous. And I was like, well, it's just me. Just get on. Like this would be like if we were in my living room. The only thing we're missing is wine, which why don't I have wine? I have water. I should have wine. It's 6:25 at night. But yeah, I hope people watching it, it's real, it's very comfortable, and I hope they feel comfortable enough to come on it. But I always tell people, do it anyway, try it anyway. You have to start somewhere. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect.
And also the for most people the failure is no failure. It's really the nice thing about the writer Twitter group, I think, is that you can experiment, try things, do things like this, and it is not throwing someone into the fire. Like it's really a good place to try things and experiment and get used to stuff. I think that's one of the most valuable things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because it's like, would you rather fail on a cute little show with me for 15 minutes and your eyes fail, or would you rather, do it on a giant stage with 150,000 people? I would say you'd probably want to come on here. But all of it's been great fun. Everyone's been very relaxed and comfortable, and just once you get started, you kind of forget that it's a show, right? That you're not just sitting here having a conversation. And that's the best part. So wrapping up with our show here would be your last question, which is what's next for you?
Yeah, I think I'm excited to launch the store, the John and H store. I think that's going to be really fun. I don't want to say, but I really am excited about the possibility of getting my work out in a more professional manner. And I'm not going to, I'm too superstitious to say one thing or the other, but
Yep.
I think that that is more on the table than it was before. And more importantly, I really believe more now that my work could find somebody interested in it or get out there. It has had such a, there's been a really sincere response to it from people who I either don't know or whose taste I really trust, and it's been incredibly encouraging. So thank you to all those people. So that's, I don't say that's the next thing, but I do feel like that's a very big possibility, which is exciting. And then I think just taking the stories and pierogies, the literary and
Yeah.
dumpling food themed event further is very exciting. We've had these really great guests, and those things. And then, yeah, just seeing what this kind of Twitter writer or online
Yeah.
community can do. I think it can do big things.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's sort of solidified because of COVID, and it's a good foundation for going forward. I think it would have probably been very fragmented had I gone and joined it maybe a year prior to when I did. So it's been very, very
Th- th-
special.
Things are changing, and so I mean, you could be there's no way, there's nothing for me stopping the possibility of being that 150,000 person show. Like, it's just, people are getting used to this. This is the
Yeah.
beginning of it. This is how it kind of starts, and
Yeah.
so that's what's really exciting. It does feel like there's a bit of a shift here, and also serving a nice service. I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
we're talking and not
Yeah.
locked in a room staring at the wall, that's big.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. And I think also giving people a chance to come out and talk about their work, that you put yourself out there and say, come talk about your work, when maybe they wouldn't have gotten an interview otherwise. Everybody's story is worth hearing, and having that opportunity to get out there and talk about it. So that's been the best part, is meeting people that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise, but also, getting to know authors and their work that maybe I wouldn't have read that otherwise, or I wouldn't have picked it up. So that has been fantastic. But I cannot thank you enough for doing the show with me. This is absolutely fantastic. I hope everybody goes out and checks out your website, johnaronsandler.com, with all our A's and no H's. So I will put it, I promise I will put it in the link below for the video so that no one can mess that up. I hope they all go out and check it out, and also the YouTube, and watch the videos. They're great fun. I've seen a couple earlier. Great fun to watch people read their own work, because I will say, reading your own work, the author reading it, there's a certain authenticity to it. There's a certain voice that comes out more when the author reads it than when say the host reads it or somebody else reads it. So it gives you a lot of great insight into these wonderful stories that are out there. So thank you again, John, for coming on the show. And thanks everybody.
Sorry, I was just gonna say thank you for having me, and like I said, the thank yous will go forever. And we'll talk. We should talk about stories and pierogies. I think.
Yeah,
I
that
think
sounds so fun. That
that'd be
sounds so
cool.
fun. It can't get any better. It can't, food and writing and talking to different authors and getting to meet new people. So absolutely wonderful. So, and thanks for everybody who's watching. Thank you. Bye now.
Goodbye.